She was standing on a bridge in the middle of the night, talking a stranger out of falling. The thing that finally worked wasn't a command. It wasn't years of negotiation training. It wasn't police procedure. It was a single sentence. She looked at him and admitted she was scared too. That one decision saved a life. This is the story of Sergeant DTO, a New Zealand police negotiator who faced a man standing on the edge of an overbridge with nothing between him and the road below. What happened over the next hour has since become one of the most remarkable examples of crisis negotiation. Not because she followed the textbook, but because she knew exactly when to set it aside. It began with a call in the middle of the night. A young man had climbed onto the railing of an overbridge. Nobody knew how long he'd been there. Nobody knew what had brought him there. What everyone knew was that time was running out. Officers arrived quickly, but only one of them could walk toward the railing and begin the conversation. That officer was Sergeant DTO. She wasn't new to moments like this. As both a youth aid officer and a trained police negotiator, she'd spent years speaking with people in crisis. But experience doesn't make calls like this routine. Every person standing on that edge brings a different story, and every conversation begins without knowing how it will end. So she didn't rush. She didn't demand that he climb down. She didn't begin with a speech about choosing life. Instead, she asked him a question, not about the bridge, about him. She asked about his family, his parents, whether he had children. Then she asked the question that mattered most. What happened that brought you here tonight? She wasn't trying to convince him to climb down, not yet. First, she needed to understand the person standing on the railing, not the crisis, but the person behind it. Because you can't give someone hope until you know what they've lost. For a while, nothing changed. The young man stayed exactly where he was. One wrong step was all it would take. Below them, traffic continued through the darkness, completely unaware of the conversation unfolding overhead. Then something shifted. He answered, not all at once, just a few words at first. Then another sentence. Little by little, silence gave way to conversation. Dee didn't interrupt him. She didn't rush to solve his problems. She simply listened. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. As the minutes passed, she carefully guided the conversation toward the people waiting for him beyond that bridge. His family, the people who loved him, the people who might never understand why he was gone. Then she asked another question. What would they do without you? It wasn't meant to make him feel guilty. It was meant to remind him that his story didn't end with him. In New Zealand, there's a Maori word that captures this idea, wakapapa. It describes the connection between a person, their family, their ancestors, and the generations that follow. Whether he was thinking about that word or not, Dee was gently leading him back toward the same idea, that he still belonged to someone, and someone still belonged to him. The conversation continued, minute after minute, word after word. Eventually, something happened that almost never happens unless trust has already begun to form. She moved closer, not by accident, not because the danger had passed, because somehow he let her. Slowly, she climbed onto the railing beside him. Now they were both standing above the drop, two strangers, one of them trying to save the other, neither of them knowing how the night would end. And that's when everything changed. Standing beside him on that narrow railing, Dee had reached the closest point anyone could safely reach. But being close wasn't the same as bringing him down. One wrong move, one sudden grab, one moment of panic, and both of them could have fallen. She knew it. He knew it. For several long moments, neither of them moved. Then Dee did something almost no one expected. She didn't reach for him. She didn't tell him everything would be okay. She didn't repeat the training she'd spent years learning. Instead, she told him the truth. She looked at him and quietly said, "I'm scared of heights." It was an extraordinary thing to admit. Until that moment, she had been the calm professional, the person holding the situation together. Now, for the first time, she let him see that she was afraid too. It wasn't a negotiation tactic. It wasn't manipulation. It was honesty. And somehow, that honesty changed everything. Something shifted inside him. His attention moved away from the edge, away from the darkness below, away from himself. Instead, he started looking at her. He noticed where she was standing. He noticed how exposed she was. He even began making sure she didn't lose her footing. Think about that for a moment. Only minutes earlier, he was the person everyone was trying to save. Now, he was worried about someone else. In that single moment, the entire conversation changed. He wasn't just a man standing on the edge anymore. He had become someone another person was depending on. Sometimes that's enough. Not because every problem suddenly disappears, but because for the first time in a long time, someone has a reason to take the next step instead of the last one. Slowly, without rushing, without anyone giving orders, the two of them began climbing down. Not as a police officer dragging someone to safety, not as a rescuer carrying a victim, but as two people leaving the railing together, side by side, back onto solid ground.